Welcome, everybody. This is episode 4 of the MAAWG-5. I'm Severin Walker, the board co-chair, and today we will be talking to members of the Abuse Desk Committee. MAAWG-5 is where we discuss the latest anti-abuse efforts and developments from the online ecosystem, and today's guests are Mickey Chandler, the Abuse Desk Committee co-chair, as well as Director of Privacy and Abuse Management at ExactTarget, and Jess Kaplan, Abuse Desk Committee Vice Chair and Senior Email Compliance Analyst at ActiveCampaign. Between them, they have at least 26 years of compliance and deliverability experience, and have led abuse desks for companies across several industries. Both Mickey and Jess have expertise on both the front and back end operations that are needed to detect and prevent abuse, as well as maintain compliance. So, welcome, Mickey and Jess, and thank you for appearing on MAAWG-5. In this episode, we'll highlight the work of MAAWG's Abuse Desk Committee, the prominent developments in recent years, as well as the committee's areas of focus in the coming months. First, can you give us an overview of the Abuse Desk Committee? What types of organizations comprise the membership, and why there's been a heightened demand from industry participation in recent years?
Sure, Severin. Our committee involves members from both the sending and receiving communities, as well as we have representation from filters and other groups, hosting providers. We sort of encompass everything. So we have folks that are involved in making certain that customers don't have their home internet burdened down with malware. We also have folks like me who specialize in dealing with customers that are sending messages and making certain that those messages are sent with permission. And it's just one of those things where if you're not sort of watching the house, something bad is going to happen. So I like to think that our participation is high because we're an area that's always in demand, even if folks don't necessarily see our work in front of the scenes at their jobs. We're always there sort of protecting the back door.
No, that certainly makes sense, Mickey. Thanks. Now, abuse desks handle a wide variety of consumer inquiries on a daily basis. Can you detail the operational topics and challenges that the committee covers? Have you noticed any trends emerge in recent member sessions or updates?
The Abuse Desk Committee is almost always working on training materials that support new and longtime members. These resource topics can vary from the initial setup of an abuse desk to handling difficult customer conversations, and even how to prove the value of an abuse desk to leadership when your team is not always viewed as revenue generating. One of the biggest challenges that we've encountered over the last years among all of our committee members is, as the pandemic continues to evolve, the increased abuse and different threat types that we're seeing across the industry. So a lot of our work over the last 18 months have been focused on analyzing that data, sharing information among the community of the different threats that we're seeing, so that we can have better abuse prevention and detection methods developed for the industry.
That's great, and that is one thing I have observed for the past few years within the Abuse Desk Committee is it is a community that looks to share both the technical and non-technical experience. And as Mickey stated too, it runs between parts of the industry. It's not just ISPs, it's not just email service providers, et cetera. So great to hear so much work's going into some important areas. One of your prominent areas of focus as committee chairs has been addressing mental abuse and working to ensure employee mental health. Can you speak more on the importance of this work?
Sure. It's an area that I think hasn't gotten as much exposure as it needs to have. We work in an area where people sometimes think that the abuse desk means the abused desk. And so, they'll write in and they'll say mean, horrible things about us, as though the things that our customers do is a reflection of the values that we hold. And I know that happens not only just with senders like my employer, but also back in the days when I worked for what would now be referred to as a receiver. The same thing happened there as well. And so people tend for some reason to feel like it's okay to lash out. And so we work in a high stress industry, and it's really hard sometimes for us to remember that our mental health counts too. And so one of the things that we've been trying to emphasize is that very idea that there are people here, and those people have the right to be safe and healthy in all aspects of their job. So it's not just you can take a day off when you have a cold, but it's more the idea that you deserve to be safe in all the other aspects of things that touch your work life as well.
And has the committee identified any trends or best practice from this ongoing dialogue with its members?
Probably the biggest area that we've spent so far the most time talking about has been on the idea of burnout. The idea that says that we've got people that are working more hours than ever, they're dealing with highly stressful situations, and there comes a certain point in which you just burn out. So what does burnout look like? What does it mean for that to happen? How does that affect your job? What can you do in order to handle or alleviate or mitigate those risks somehow? And so we spent a lot of time talking about that. What can we do, especially when you're in my position? What can you do as a manager in order to help your people have the best mental health that they can? And sometimes that's something as simple as saying, maybe we need to take a day off and just decompress. Sometimes it's emphasizing the idea of more time off than that. And so, especially as we've been dealing with this pandemic, people seem like they're working more hours than ever. They're not taking their PTO. And those type things have an effect on our ability to do our jobs. And so it's one of those things that we've been talking about a lot lately is how do we sort of take that thrust and put it back where it's supposed to be, where we're not living for our jobs, that our jobs are something that help us along the way. And so I don't have to give everything that I am in order to be who I am.
Certainly, yeah, and definitely an area that is relatively new for MAAWG to focus on, but I think it's critical for the industry in general to be aware of and speak openly about maybe new ways of approaching some of this, like you've mentioned. Okay. Well, impressively, the Abuse Desk Committee has remained active through the past year, as you mentioned. Mickey, has the pandemic presented any new challenges to the committee or its members? How have the needs of Abuse Desk changed in the wake of the pandemic, if at all?
It really has. What we see is that people are now dealing with having to work in different ways than they've ever worked before. Sort of up until now, the typical abuse desk model involves people sitting at desks in offices. And because of the pandemic, we've had to take those people out of their desks and out of their offices and send them home. So they've got to figure out a way to work together with their teams to get the job done. They've got to make certain that they figure out how to start and stop the day so that they're not working 24 hours out of the day. All of these things that for a small subset of teams across the committee, that's sort of been the way that things have happened historically because they've been remote. But when you're dealing with a team that is used to being in the office and now all of a sudden you've taken them out of the office, that's been a humongous change for those folks. And that's only happened over the last year. And one of the things that we're looking at and talking about, of course, is what is an abuse desk going to look like in 2 years? What's it going to look like in 5 years? Because we're seeing a lot of things are changing, and they're not just changing temporarily in response to the pandemic, but rather they're changing permanently in response to the pandemic. And so those folks that used to sit in an office all the time and work cases, sitting next to 3 other people that are doing the same thing, that may never happen again. You may actually find that you only go into the office 1 or 2 days a week, and the guy next to you only goes in 1 or 2 days a week, and the girl on the other side of you, again, only 1 or 2 days a week. And so you may only see those people a couple of times, 3 or 4 times a month, or you may transition to a completely remote model, because I think a large number of employers are now seeing that this is something that you can usually actually do from home unless there are big driving reasons why you need them in the office. And so that'll provide added flexibility, but that will also come with some costs. And so we're talking about those things as well.
Yeah, definitely a new set of challenges, but also a lot of opportunity, especially from the individual contributor point of view. So, Jess, as we wrap up here, are there any resources our viewers can go to learn more and keep up with the committee?
Absolutely. Committee members stay connected through a Slack channel and a mailing list, both of which can be accessed through the members only section of the MAAWG website. Additionally, we have a full committee call every 4 weeks. We're always open to new members, and you can reach out to either the full committee via Slack or the mailing list, or feel free to message the chairs and vice chairs anytime. We are open to questions, comments, and suggestions.
Fantastic. Well, I thank you for your time today, Mickey and Jess. And for our viewers, stay tuned for our next edition of the MAAWG 5, and feel free to reach out via our Contact Us form on the website to suggest topics or guests. Again, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Severin.
you.